Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into today's story. But this was only the beginning of their story. Little did Emma know, Liam was no ordinary man. He was, in fact, the CEO of a tech empire, and his life was about to collide with hers in ways neither of them could have imagined. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into today's story. But this was just the beginning of their story. Little did Emma know, Liam was no ordinary man. He was the CEO of a major tech empire, and his life was about to collide with hers in ways neither of them could have predicted. The next day, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the encounter at the bistro. She replayed every detail in her head, her heart still racing from the embarrassment. She had run out of that restaurant like a madwoman, and now, her mind was filled with guilt. What kind of person makes such a mistake? But what bothered her more was the way Liam had looked at her, not with judgment, but with a strange mix of curiosity and something else, something she couldn't quite place. She shook her head, trying to push the thought aside as she sat down at her kitchen table, staring at the bills piled high before her. Money was tight, and her student loans were starting to weigh heavily on her. She sighed, wondering how she was ever going to get ahead. As a waitress, she barely made enough to pay for rent, let alone anything else. It felt like she was stuck in an endless cycle of work and worry. That's when her phone rang, pulling her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. Hesitantly, she picked it up. "Hello?" she answered, her voice cautious. "Is this Emma Brooks?" A voice on the other end asked, smooth and confident. "Yes, this is she," she replied, wondering who it could be. "This is Liam Parker," the voice said. Emma froze. Liam Parker? The man she had mistaken for Kevin the night before? The man who, apparently, wasn't just some random guy at a blind date, but the CEO of a tech empire? "I'd like to speak with you in person," Liam continued. "I think we need to talk." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Talk? About what? The mistake she'd made? She felt a sudden wave of nervousness flood over her. Sure. What is this about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Let's meet at the same bistro, in an hour," he suggested. "I'll explain everything when you get there." Before she could say anything else, the line went dead. Emma stared at the phone, unsure of what to make of the call. It was clear that Liam had something on his mind, but she couldn't figure out what. Why would he want to meet her again, especially after she'd embarrassed herself so badly? But then again, she had no idea who he really was. He could be anyone. With a deep breath, she grabbed her coat, told herself to just go, and headed out the door. When she arrived at the bistro, she felt the familiar knot of nerves tighten in her stomach. She walked in, the warm air hitting her face, and scanned the room. There he was, sitting at the same table where they had met the night before, looking just as composed and put together as ever. His dark eyes lifted when he saw her, and he smiled slightly, as if he had been expecting her. "Emma," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I'm glad you could make it." She gave him a tentative smile, still unsure of what this meeting was about. "So what's this about, Liam? You wanted to talk?" she asked, sitting down across from him. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her for a moment before he spoke. "I know you must be wondering why I called," he began. "But I think it's important that you understand something." He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "You see, I'm not just some guy you met on a blind date. I'm the CEO of Parker Tech, a technology company that's currently facing some major issues." Emma blinked, processing what he was saying. A CEO? He didn't look like one, or at least not the type she imagined when she thought of a high-powered business executive. She hadn't expected this. "Okay," she said slowly, unsure of where this was going. "I don't understand," she added. "What does any of this have to do with me?" Liam's expression softened, and he leaned forward, placing his hands on the table. "I want to be upfront with you," he said. "The review you wrote about my restaurant, it wasn't just a bad review. It had serious consequences. Emma felt a pang of guilt rush through her. She had only written the review because she had a terrible experience. But hearing Liam's words made her realize how much impact her words had. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she said quietly. I was upset. The food was bad. The service was worse. I felt like I had to say something." He nodded, his gaze steady. "I get that. But the problem is, that review went viral. And because of that, my restaurant has been struggling to stay afloat. I'm facing a potential lawsuit, and my investors are starting to pull out." He paused for a moment, his voice lowering. "This is a mess. A huge mess. But here's the thing, I don't blame you. I'm not angry with you, Emma. I understand why you wrote what you did." He sat back in his chair, his eyes searching hers. "But I need your help." Emma's brow furrowed in confusion. "Help? How can I help you?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. Liam looked at her intently. "I need someone to help me turn this around. And I need someone who's not afraid to be honest with me, even if it means telling me the truth about things I don't want to hear." He took another breath. "I was thinking, maybe we could work together. You have experience with reviews, with marketing, and I could use someone like you. I'm offering you a job. But here's the catch." Emma's heart raced as she waited for him to continue. "What's the catch?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her with determination. "You'll need to help me rebuild my company. And to do that, you'll have to join me, in a way. I need you to pretend we're in a relationship, a public one. It's the only way to make things look legitimate again. The media will eat it up, and it'll help both of us. But this has to be real, for the public. I'll pay you, of course. And you'll have full control over how we proceed." Emma sat back, stunned by his proposal. A fake relationship? She wasn't sure if she should be flattered, angry, or just plain confused. But there was one thing she knew for sure. This was an offer she couldn't refuse. She had bills to pay, and she was desperate for a way out. Emma sat in stunned silence, her mind racing. The offer Liam had just made sounded insane. Yet, part of her felt drawn to it. She had never been one to play games or pretend, but her financial situation was desperate. The bills were piling up, and her student loans were a constant weight on her shoulders. She had worked tirelessly for years, only to find herself stuck in a cycle of barely getting by. The thought of helping Liam, of turning her situation around, was tempting. But a fake relationship? She wasn't sure she could do it. "I don't know," she said, her voice uncertain. "I mean, it sounds crazy. A fake relationship? For how long?" Liam leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers, his expression serious. "As long as it takes. The media will pick it up quickly, and once the story spreads, people will believe it. You and I will pretend to be in love, show up at events together, and let them think we're a couple. But behind closed doors, we keep it professional. You'll help me rebuild the business, and I'll make sure you're well taken care of. Financially, you won't have to worry about a thing." Emma hesitated. It was the money that tempted her, but something inside her told her this wasn't just about money. She looked at Liam, his confident demeanor and the weight of his words hanging in the air between them. She had to admit, he seemed sincere. He was asking for her help, not just using her. "And what's in it for you?" she asked quietly. Liam's lips curled into a slight smile. "Reputation. A future. I've worked my whole life to get where I am, and I'm not about to lose everything because of a bad review." He paused, his gaze softening for a moment. "I just need someone who can help me put things back together. And I think you're the right person." Emma swallowed hard, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She didn't want to get involved in something so complicated, but she couldn't deny the pull of the opportunity. It felt like the chance she'd been waiting for. "Okay," she said finally, her voice firm. "I'll do it. But we do it my way. I want control over how this plays out, and I won't do anything that compromises my integrity." Liam's smile widened, and he extended his hand across the table. "Agreed. We'll keep it professional, and when it's over, we can walk away without any strings attached." Emma shook his hand, sealing the deal. She wasn't sure what she had just signed up for, but something about Liam's calm confidence made her feel like she was making the right choice. As she walked out of the bistro, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Emma moved into a temporary apartment closer to Liam's office, and the two of them began their charade. They attended parties, charity galas, and business meetings together, always playing the perfect couple in front of the cameras. Behind closed doors, Their interactions were professional, sometimes even awkward, but neither of them crossed the line. Emma had to admit, it was strange at first, acting like they were in love, holding hands in public, laughing and smiling for the press. But it started to feel more natural as time went on. She saw a different side of Liam. He was more than just a rich CEO. There were moments when he let his guard down, when his smile wasn't for the cameras, and Emma found herself appreciating him in ways she hadn't expected. One evening, after a successful gala where they had danced under the lights and laughed with the guests, Emma found herself sitting next to Liam on the balcony of his penthouse. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and the cool night air carried a sense of calm. Liam was unusually quiet, staring out at the skyline. Emma looked at him, sensing that there was more to his story than he had let on. "You know," she began softly, "you don't have to pretend with me. I get that this whole thing is complicated, but if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here." Liam turned to her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, with a sigh, he leaned back in his chair. "It's not easy," he said quietly. "Building an empire and watching it all fall apart because of one bad review. I thought I could handle everything on my own, but now I see I can't. I've made mistakes, and I've hurt people along the way." His voice trailed off, and Emma could hear the raw vulnerability beneath his words. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before, and it surprised her. She had always thought of him as untouchable, as someone who had everything figured out. But in that moment, she realized how much he was carrying. "You're not alone in this," she said gently, her voice full of empathy. "I'm here to help, Liam. We're in this together, okay?" He met her gaze, and for the first time, there was something different in his eyes, something softer. "Thanks, Emma," he said, his voice low. "That means more than you know." Emma smiled, and in that moment, she realized that maybe this fake relationship wasn't so fake after all. As the days went by, Emma's feelings for Liam grew. She started seeing him less as a client or a business partner, and more as someone she could trust. And Liam, despite the fact that this whole thing started as a business arrangement, was beginning to feel the same way about her. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's arrangement seemed to be working better than either of them expected. The media loved their perfect couple story, and the public was captivated by their chemistry. They were photographed together at parties, their smiles bright, and their hands always intertwined, as if they were in love. Behind the scenes, things were more complicated. Emma had started to see Liam in a new light. He wasn't just the CEO of Parker Tech, the wealthy businessman with a reputation to uphold. He was someone who had fallen from grace, just like her, trying to rebuild, trying to find his way. They shared late-night conversations about their hopes, fears, and the mistakes that had brought them to this point. For Emma, it was a strange feeling, finding solace in someone she had initially thought of as untouchable. But as time went on, it became clear that their connection was growing deeper. She found herself thinking about Liam when they weren't together, wondering if the feelings she had for him were just a result of their situation, or if there was something more to it. Liam, on the other hand, was still guarded, though he seemed to trust Emma more and more. He didn't talk much about his past, and Emma respected that. But every once in a while, she caught him looking at her with an expression that was different from the one he showed the world, a look that held something softer, something more vulnerable. It made her heart ache, and she couldn't quite figure out why. It was on a Friday evening when things took an unexpected turn. They had just finished attending a charity event together, and as usual, the cameras were flashing, the reporters were asking questions, and they were posing as the perfect couple. But when the event was over, and they were alone in the car, everything shifted. Liam was unusually quiet, his face serious as he stared out the window, his jaw clenched. Emma, sensing something was off, reached over and gently touched his arm. "Liam?" she asked softly. He turned to her, his eyes meeting hers. There was a tension in his gaze, something that hadn't been there before. "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this," he said, his voice low, almost strained. "This whole thing, the fake relationship, it's starting to feel too real." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what to say. "I thought we were in this together," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "We are," he replied quickly. "But I can't help feeling like I'm crossing a line. Every time I hold your hand in front of the cameras, every time I look at you and smile, it gets harder to remember it's just an act." He paused, his expression softening. "I don't want this to be just a deal anymore, Emma. I want more. Emma felt a rush of emotions flood through her. She had been wondering for weeks if her feelings were just part of the game, if they were just pretending, or if there was something real between them. Now, hearing Liam say the words she had been too afraid to admit herself made her heart race. Liam, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I've been thinking the same thing. I don't want this to just be a contract either. But I don't know how to make it real, how to make it work. She looked at him, her eyes searching his. What do we do now? Liam reached over and took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. We stop pretending. We figure this out together. No more acting. No more games. Just us. And we'll take it one step at a time. The words hung in the air between them, full of promise and uncertainty. Emma didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in weeks, she felt like they were both finally being honest with each other. There was no going back now, but for the first time, she wasn't scared. She was ready to see where this real connection would take them. The next few days were filled with uncertainty, but also with a new sense of hope. Emma and Liam started to spend more time together outside of their public appearances, talking about everything and nothing at all. They shared quiet dinners, spontaneous walks, and moments of laughter that felt more genuine than anything they had done before. The line between their fake relationship and reality was beginning to blur, and neither of them knew what to make of it. One evening, as they sat together in Liam's penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below them, Emma realized that she had never felt more at peace. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't worried about her bills or her future. She wasn't focused on what she had lost or what she was still struggling to gain. She was here, in this moment, with Liam. And somehow, that felt like enough. Liam turned to her, his expression serious but gentle. I know this hasn't been easy for you, he said quietly. But I hope you know that none of this, none of us, was ever just a deal. It's been real from the start. I just needed to find the courage to say it. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. I know, she whispered, her voice thick with feeling. And I'm glad you did. And so, with the future uncertain but filled with possibility, Emma and Liam faced what was to come together, not as a business arrangement, not as a fake couple, but as two people who had found something real in each other. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt hopeful for the first time in years. Days turned into weeks, and as the days passed, Emma and Liam's connection deepened. What started as a fake relationship, an arrangement made out of necessity, was slowly becoming something far more real. They spent less time thinking about what was expected of them, and more time simply enjoying each other's company. Their evenings together were filled with laughter, quiet moments of understanding, and shared vulnerability. Emma had never imagined that a situation born out of desperation could turn into something so genuine. They no longer attended events as a couple just to fool the public. They went because they wanted to. Their bond had moved beyond the cameras and the media frenzy to something personal, something authentic. The change was subtle at first. Liam would reach for her hand without hesitation, a small gesture that seemed so simple, yet meant everything. Emma would catch him looking at her with a softness that made her heart flutter, a look that said more than words ever could. She could tell that his feelings were real, and that scared her. She had grown to care for him more than she ever expected, but she was still uncertain about what it meant. She had been hurt before, and she didn't want to put herself in a position where she might get hurt again. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and events, they found themselves back at Liam's penthouse, exhausted but content. They sat down on the couch, both silently grateful for the quiet. The city lights outside twinkled like a sea of stars, and for a moment, the world felt still. Liam was the first to break the silence. Emma, he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that she hadn't heard before. I've been thinking a lot about everything. The past few months, how things have changed. Emma looked at him, her heart pounding. I know, she replied quietly. I've been thinking about it too. It's a lot to process. Liam nodded, his gaze shifting to the window. I've always been in control of everything. My company, my life, my reputation. But when I met you, things shifted. I realized I don't have to do everything alone. I've been so focused on building my empire, I forgot what really matters. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never heard Liam talk like this, and it made her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. Liam, she began, but he held up his hand, signaling her to wait. I know this whole situation started as a way to fix things, he continued. But I don't want to keep pretending anymore. I don't want to be in a relationship with you because it looks good on paper or because we need to save face. I want to be with you because I care about you. And I think you care about me too. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for him to say those words, but hearing them out loud still made her heart race. I do, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I care about you more than I thought possible. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the weight of their words hanging between them. Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest, the vulnerability of the moment overwhelming her. She had been so guarded for so long, afraid to let anyone in, but with Liam, it felt different. There was no pretense, no acting. It was real. He reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. So what do we do now? She asked, her voice shaky. Now, we take a chance, Liam replied, his voice steady and sure. We stop pretending and see where this goes. No more games, no more lies. Just us. Emma smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek, a tear she hadn't expected but welcomed. She didn't have all the answers, but in that moment, she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to see where this real connection would lead. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change. Their relationship, once built on a foundation of lies, was now growing stronger every day. They were no longer hiding behind the facade of a fake romance for the cameras. Instead, they were learning to navigate the complexities of their real feelings. There were moments of doubt, moments where the future seemed uncertain, but they faced it all together. The public still saw them as the perfect couple, but Emma and Liam knew the truth. The truth was something deeper, something more powerful. And for the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe in love again. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, watching the sunset, Liam turned to her, his eyes filled with affection. I know this hasn't been easy, he said, his voice sincere. But I'm glad we took this chance. I'm glad we stopped pretending. Emma smiled, her heart full. Me too, she replied softly. I never expected any of this, but now I can't imagine my life without you in it. Liam took her hand and squeezed it gently. Neither can I. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, no longer pretending, but living in the truth of their love. As the weeks went by, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow in ways neither of them expected. They had stopped pretending, and what had started as a fake relationship, an arrangement for convenience, was becoming something real, something deep. They spent more time together, not as a couple for the media or the public, but as two people who genuinely cared about each other. Their late-night conversations were no longer filled with awkward silence or forced small talk. Instead, they were open, honest, and full of laughter. They learned about each other's pasts, their fears, their dreams, and in doing so, they built something much stronger than they had ever anticipated. For Emma, this was new territory. She had always been cautious with her heart, keeping it locked away to protect herself from past hurts. But with Liam, she found herself letting go of the walls she had built over the years. She wasn't afraid anymore, not of him, and not of what could happen between them. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could truly open up and trust someone. One evening, as they sat together in the cozy living room of Liam's penthouse, the weight of the world felt a little lighter. The city lights outside sparkled like diamonds, casting a soft glow over everything. They had just returned from a dinner out with friends, and the room was filled with the comforting quiet that only came after a long, satisfying day. Liam leaned back on the couch, glancing at Emma with a thoughtful look in his eyes. You know, he began, his voice low, I've been thinking a lot about everything, about how far we've come since this all started. Emma looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. She had been thinking the same thing. She had never imagined that agreeing to a fake relationship would lead her here, feeling this way about someone she had barely known a few months ago. I know, she said softly, her voice full of emotion. It's hard to believe how much has changed. I never expected this, us, to be real. Liam's expression softened as he reached for her hand, his fingers gently brushing against hers. Neither did I, he said quietly. But I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we're here. Emma squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with affection. Me too, she whispered. I don't want to go back to pretending anymore. I don't want to hide this, what we have, because it's real. It's more real than anything I've felt in a long time. Liam's gaze locked with hers, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. All that mattered was the person sitting in front of them, the one they had both come to care about more than they had ever anticipated. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, and she rested her head on his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat beneath her. There was a sense of peace in that moment, a feeling of belonging that Emma had never thought she would experience. As the days passed, the relationship continued to evolve, and Emma found herself thinking more and more about the future. She had come to realize that she didn't just want to be in this relationship because it had started out as a business arrangement. She wanted to be with Liam because he had shown her that love could be real, even in the most unexpected circumstances. But there were still questions that lingered in her mind. What would happen when the media caught wind of their newfound honesty? What would their families think? And, most importantly, could they make this work in the long term? Emma wasn't one to make rash decisions, but for the first time in her life, she was willing to take a risk. For the first time, she was willing to believe that something could last. One afternoon, while Liam was busy with work, Emma decided to take a walk to clear her head. The weather was perfect, sunny but cool, and as she strolled through the park, she couldn't help but think about all the changes she had gone through since meeting Liam. She had come to this city with dreams of a better future, but she had never expected her journey would lead her to a man like him. A man who wasn't just a CEO or a wealthy businessman, but someone who had taught her what it meant to truly trust and love again. She knew that their path ahead wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But for the first time, she felt confident that they could face whatever came their way together. When she returned to the apartment, Liam was waiting for her, his eyes bright when he saw her walk through the door. He stood up and walked over to her, his arms opening as if to pull her into a hug. "You're back," he said with a smile, his voice full of warmth. "How was your walk?" Emma smiled back, feeling a rush of affection for him. "It was nice. I needed some time to think." Liam's expression softened as he gently cupped her face with his hand. "What were you thinking about?" he asked, his voice sincere. Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "I was thinking about us," she said quietly, "and how far we've come. I didn't expect any of this, but now I can't imagine my life without you in it." Liam's heart swelled at her words, and without saying another word, he kissed her gently on the lips, as if to show her just how much he felt in that moment. For Emma, it was a perfect moment, a turning point. She had gone from being afraid of falling in love again to realizing that she was ready to take a leap of faith. And in that leap, she knew there was only one person she wanted to take it with, Liam. As the weeks went by, the world around Emma and Liam seemed to shift once again. Their relationship, which had started as a business arrangement, had blossomed into something real, something neither of them expected. They were no longer just the perfect couple for the public eye. They were genuinely falling for each other. But with this new level of intimacy came new challenges. The weight of the situation was beginning to settle in, and both of them felt the pressure. They had kept their relationship a secret for so long, pretending to be in love for the cameras. But now, with everything they had built together, they both wondered how long they could keep their real feelings hidden. Emma often found herself questioning how long they could live in this limbo, this in-between space where everything was uncertain. She knew that their bond had grown deeper than they had anticipated, but there were still doubts. Would they be able to navigate the complexities of a real relationship in the long run? Could they face the outside world once the truth came out? And, most importantly, could they trust each other completely? One evening, after a long day of meetings and public appearances, Emma and Liam found themselves back at his penthouse. The usual tension was in the air as they both sat down on the couch, each lost in their thoughts. Emma could feel the quiet weight of the unsaid words between them. It was no longer just about what they were pretending to be. It was about what they truly were. She knew they couldn't keep up this charade forever, but she didn't know how to move forward without risking everything they had built. Liam, sensing the shift in the air, turned to her. His eyes were serious, and for a moment, Emma felt like they were both standing on the edge of something important. He took a deep breath, then spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Emma, we can't keep doing this," he said, his words hanging heavily in the air. "I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to keep acting like we're just a show for everyone else. I want to be with you for real." but I don't know how to make it happen. I don't want to lose you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for him to say those words, but hearing them out loud brought a mix of relief and fear. She had never allowed herself to feel this vulnerable before. With Liam, everything felt different. He had become someone she trusted, someone she was ready to build a future with, yet the fear of everything falling apart was still there. She took his hand, looking him in the eyes, her voice soft but steady. "I don't want to lose you either," she replied. "But I'm scared. Scared of what happens if we go all in, scared of what the future holds for us. I never thought I'd be in this position, feeling so exposed." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his thumb brushing over her skin in a soothing gesture. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'm scared too. But I can't keep living in this uncertain space. I need to know that we're moving forward together. I need to know that you want this as much as I do." Emma looked at him, her heart filled with a mix of fear and hope. She knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that they had something worth fighting for. She took a deep breath, trying to steady the racing thoughts in her mind. "Okay," she said finally, her voice more confident than she felt. "We take the risk. We move forward. No more pretending, no more hiding. But we do it together, and we face whatever comes our way as a team." Liam's face softened, a genuine smile spreading across his face. He reached out and pulled her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her like a promise. Together, he whispered into her ear. Emma closed her eyes, resting her head against his chest. In that moment, she knew they had crossed a line from pretending to being real. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face the future with him, without fear of what the world might think or how complicated things could get. In the weeks that followed, Emma and Liam's relationship flourished in a way neither of them expected. They no longer worried about the public perception or about hiding their true feelings. They spent more time together, enjoying each other's company in private, and the bond they shared grew stronger every day. They faced the challenges head-on, navigating their personal lives, dealing with the pressure of their careers, and supporting each other through the ups and downs. And as their love story became more real, so did their future together. The once uncertain path ahead was now filled with possibilities. With each passing day, Emma and Liam knew they had made the right choice. They weren't just playing a part anymore. They were living their truth. And for the first time, they both felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. As Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow, they began to face new challenges. Challenges that came not from the outside world, but from within themselves. While they had both taken the leap into a real, honest connection, there were still moments of doubt. For Emma, the fear of vulnerability still lingered. She had spent so many years guarding her heart, afraid of getting hurt again, that fully letting go and trusting someone completely wasn't easy. And for Liam, the pressures of his company and the expectations placed on him as a CEO were overwhelming at times. He had built his empire from the ground up, but now, he was navigating something far more delicate, his own feelings. For all the success he had achieved, he was still learning what it meant to truly let someone in. Yet, despite these uncertainties, they both knew that they had something worth fighting for. One evening, after another long week of meetings, events, and endless work, they found themselves sitting on the balcony of Liam's penthouse once again. The city lights stretched out before them, casting a soft glow across the skyline. The air was cool, and the quiet of the night offered a rare moment of peace. Emma leaned back against the railing, her eyes gazing out at the view, lost in thought. Liam sat beside her, his gaze fixed on her, sensing the quiet tension in the air. He had noticed that Emma had been distant lately, more reserved than usual. He could feel her internal struggle, and it was clear that she was carrying something heavy on her mind. "Emma," Liam said softly, his voice breaking the silence. "What's going on? You've been quiet lately. I can feel something's weighing on you." Emma turned to face him, her eyes meeting his. She had been trying to bury the doubts that had been creeping into her mind, but now, with Liam's gentle question, they felt impossible to ignore. "I've just been thinking," she said, her voice hesitating. "About everything. About us. I know we've come so far, and I know this is real, but I'm still afraid. Afraid of what comes next." Liam took a deep breath, his expression softening. He reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "I understand," he said quietly. "I've been afraid too. We've both been through so much, and starting something real after everything that's happened, it's not easy. But I know one thing for sure, Emma. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed her hand gently, his eyes locking with hers. You don't have to be afraid of what comes next, because we'll face it together. No matter what. Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. For so long, she had kept her guard up, afraid to let someone in. But with Liam, she felt safe. She felt like she could take that leap of faith and trust him with her heart. And for the first time in a long time, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be afraid anymore. I know, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I know I don't have to do this alone. She smiled softly, a tear slipping down her cheek. Thank you, for being patient with me, for understanding. Liam wiped the tear from her cheek, his expression tender. There's no need to thank me, he said. We're in this together, remember? We always will be. He leaned in and kissed her forehead gently, holding her close. I don't have all the answers, and I know we'll face some tough times ahead, but I'm not scared anymore. As long as we're together, we can handle anything. Emma closed her eyes, resting her head against his chest. In that moment, she knew that they had finally crossed the line between fear and love. It wasn't perfect, and the future was still uncertain, but she had Liam by her side. And that was all she needed. They didn't need to have everything figured out right away. They just needed to take things one step at a time, together. The days that followed were filled with new beginnings. Emma and Liam started to carve out a life that was their own, one that wasn't defined by public expectations or past mistakes. They made time for each other, exploring new experiences, laughing, and supporting each other through the challenges of life. They were no longer playing a part for the world. They were living their truth. And with each passing day, their connection grew stronger, solidifying the love that had once seemed impossible. For Emma, this was everything she had ever wanted, someone who accepted her completely, flaws and all. And for Liam, he realized that love was worth more than all the success and wealth he had ever dreamed of. Together, they had found something real, a love that was built on trust, understanding, and the willingness to take a chance. And so, as they moved forward, hand in hand, they knew that no matter what came their way, they had already built the foundation for something that would last. They had found their way back to each other, and there was no turning back now. As Emma and Liam continued to build their life together, they faced the challenges of the real world, balancing their careers, their growing love, and the lingering doubts about what the future held. But with each passing day, they grew stronger, more confident in the bond they had created. They no longer worried about the expectations placed on them by others. They had found something worth holding on to. As they navigated through the ups and downs of life, Emma realized that love wasn't about perfection. It was about growth, trust, and the willingness to support each other no matter what. Liam had shown her what true partnership looked like, and she had found in him not just a lover, but a best friend and confidant. The fear that had once held her back was slowly fading away, replaced by a sense of security and hope for the future. One afternoon, while they were both enjoying a rare day off together, they found themselves sitting in the park, a quiet space away from the hustle of the city. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow across the trees. Liam turned to Emma, his expression thoughtful, and for a moment, the weight of everything they had been through seemed to settle into the quiet. You know, he said softly, when we first started this, I never imagined that we'd end up here. I thought it was just a temporary solution, something to get through the storm. But now, I can't imagine my life without you in it. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with affection. I know what you mean, she replied, her voice soft. When we first started, I thought I was just helping you out, but now it feels like we're building something real. Something that's ours. Their hands intertwined, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. The park, the city, the world around them seemed to fade away as they shared a quiet moment together. It was clear that they had come a long way from where they started, both in their relationship and in their lives. They had taken risks, made mistakes, but in the end, they had found something beautiful and lasting in each other. As they walked back to Liam's penthouse later that evening, the streets were quiet, and the city lights flickered like stars above them. Liam stopped for a moment, turning to Emma with a look of sincerity in his eyes. I want to do something, he said, his voice steady. I want to make this official. Not just for us, but for everyone. I don't want to hide what we have anymore. I want to show the world that what we have, is real. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had always known that they were different from the start, but hearing Liam say those words made everything feel so much more certain. What do you mean? She asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and excitement. Liam smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes. I want to marry you, he said simply. For real. No more pretending. Just you and me, together, forever. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The words she had hoped to hear, the words that had seemed impossible not so long ago, were now right in front of her. She had dreamed of this moment, but she hadn't expected it to come so soon. She looked at Liam, her heart full of love and happiness. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, I want that too. I want to be with you for real. And just like that, their journey took another turn. From a business arrangement to a real love story, from pretending to being true partners. Liam and Emma knew that the road ahead would have its challenges, but they were no longer afraid. Together, they had built something strong, something real, and they were ready to face whatever the future held side by side. As the sun set on their perfect day, Emma and Liam stood together, hand in hand, ready to begin the next chapter of their lives. And for the first time in a long time, they both felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be, together. The end of one journey was only the beginning of another, and in each other, they had found everything they needed to move forward, with love, trust, and the promise of forever.